So I want to briefly outline how these mei+reaper comps are fighting. This is probably going to be a quick one because I don't know if teams will still run this comp in Season 2 playoffs, but I have seen quite a few questions about it. A lot of people refer to the comp as the sort of spiritual successor to goats, and sure, both teams are very brawl and sustain heavy, but it's a very different type of sustain. Unlike goats that sort of relied on shields, bubbles, matrix and so on, the most important sustain in this comp comes from individual heroes' defensive options. And these are going to be Fortify, Ice Block, Wraith Form, and Fade. Whichever team is able to force those options first will be able to play much more aggressively using their own options, mostly trying to use the mei+ to secure picks, as those options are really the only way to avoid getting frozen once she's past the Orisa shield. But of course, in a comp that has no real range damage, often the best way to force those options is with the mei+ in the first place, so teams tend to start the fight with this sort of default. The Orisa obviously in main, but slightly to the side so she has cover to kite around when the shield goes down. The Reaper will be fairly wide out on the flank, pushing aggressively to try and force those options or force the enemy to clump up behind their shield. Some teams use Shadow Step to get in behind the enemy team and do the same, and he's able to play this aggressively because he can always Wraith Form back to his team if he gets focused. And the Mei is usually playing on the opposite side to Reaper, right on the edge of her Orisa shield where she can put a lot of pressure both in frontline and on enemies pushing closer around her team. But the main reason she's there is so that after Reaper has clumped the enemy team a bit, and once the enemy shield drops, she's able to get a really big 3 or 4 man cleave with her freeze, which will force almost all of the enemy defensive options. And even if that doesn't immediately win the fight, there's almost no way a team can come back from having those options forced in a single freeze like that. Here's an example of that default with really close positioning. It happens pretty fast, but we can see Mei and Orisa on this left side with Reaper on the other side. Soul are already pretty clumped up, so the job of the Reaper here is just to stop them from taking cover around this wall where they can break LOS with the Mei freeze. Reaper being here keeps them clumped and in full LOS of Mei when the shield goes down, which lets her freeze win the fight. I made a quick video about this fight already, and I'll link it down below. Here's a clear example of that opening positioning with Somansu on the wide flank, Bumper in main, and Haxel close on the other side. Unfortunately, Titan screwed up their sim rollout so they didn't get to this pillar in time and couldn't effectively use the default for that freeze we were talking about. But we can see how the setup still gives them options for the rest of the fight, as Mei's close but slightly to the side position can be used to muscle a rotation to point, taking advantage of all the aggro Reaper is drawing by being on that deep flank. The Reaper is then able to just Wraith back to his team. There's obviously a lot more that goes into this comp. This video is more just to point out that there is some depth positioning wise, and it's not just 6 heroes holding W and mouse 1 like a lot of people seem to think. If we do see similar comps in playoffs, teams will have been perfecting this type of default, so it is a good one to look out for.